Welcome to Exhuming the Truth, the podcast where we delve into mysterious worlds of cold cases, missing persons, true crime, and the fascinating science that is forensics. I'm forensic scientist and criminologist Asha Walther, and I am so thrilled to have you with me on this journey as we dance in the shadows of the world of crime, shining a light on scientific discovery while becoming another voice for those who need it most. So grab a drink and get comfortable while we jump into this episode together. Hello, my friends. I hope everybody is doing well. It was a beautiful sunny day today in Perth, 32 degrees. So it was the first swim in our pool for the season, which was super nice for the kids after school and come after work. We have a lot going on right now. So for housekeeping, that's what I'm going to update you on. Now, Rob Snyder, who we spoke about last episode, he is still currently missing and was last seen in the Oakford area of Thomas Road, just after Nicholson Road. So we are doing an extensive, an extensive search, on Friday. And we're going to take the four-wheel drive. I've mapped out all of the off-track areas that he could be in the Oakford area. I'm going to take the GoPro. We have a couple of volunteers who are also joining in, which is fantastic. And we're going to do that Friday through Sunday. So I'm just organising and coordinating, the map area and different search areas. So if you're able to and you're in the area and you want to join us, please do. You're more than welcome. We have Luke Gilbert. So last Thursday, I believe it was, I was lucky enough to meet Luke Gilbert's parents at a local cafe for them to hand over a hard copy of the book, which was so beautiful. They are honestly two of the nicest people I've ever met. So incredibly resilient, and the pain and suffering that they have gone through and continue to go through, and then to still be so kind and lovely to me as basically kind of a stranger that they've only spoken to online. It was very humbling, and I'm looking forward to doing more episodes on Luke because there's a lot to update you on in that regard, and I want to do their story justice to help them ultimately get justice. So there's that. Now, as far as it goes for the not-for-profit status, our application is still sitting with the Australian Charities Network. I believe that's what it's called. They said it takes up to 9 weeks, so I had hoped that it would be done before Christmas, but who knows? That's the last step for us, so that's really exciting. And I have to say thank you so much to all of you for listening and contributing online, and even people commenting and messaging me the nicest things ever. You guys are amazing, and it's becoming quite the community, which was the goal. And I'm very, very proud to have such lovely people following along. So thank you so much. Now, today in this episode, we're going to be doing a cold case in WA. It is the case of Lisa Mott, so we'll get straight into that. Welcome to Justice for Lisa Mott. WA Police have a podcast, and they named it The Disappearance of Lisa Mott, which focuses heavily on official timelines, investigative details, and interviews from the policing perspective. But this Exhuming the Truth episode is from a point of difference by taking forensic and criminological approaches that ask why things happen, not just behaviourally, but systemically, not just what happened to Lisa Mott. At age 12, when she disappeared from Collie in WA on the 30th of October of 1980, she had just attended a local basketball court and a pizza shop, but she never returned home. The police considered her disappearance suspicious, and the case is a cold case, but a suspected murder. Now, WA Pol recently reopened the inquiries around this case last year and are right now actively seeking witnesses and information, including a recent lead about a yellow Holden panel van. Now, I'm going to walk you through the timeline as we know it from WA Pol. So the evening that she went missing, Lisa left her home on Atkinson Street in Collie around 6:45 p.m. to go to the local basketball courts on Throstle Street with a friend. Her mother had actually given her permission to do this and expected Lisa to be getting a lift home with her friend's mother, which they had planned, or so they said. Now, she played basketball and was at the courts that evening until about 8:45 p.m. It is noted in different areas that she did visit a pizza shop for around 15 minutes. However, we can't really corroborate that with everybody's recounts. But around this time, she was seen crossing the railway line on Forest Street in Collie on her way home. So this was around 9 p.m. Now, this is the last confirmed sighting of her, and this was given by a girl named Susan. She was 10 years old at the time. Now, Lisa obviously never made it home, and she was reported missing from there. But witness accounts and descriptions and, well, what the police have shared anyway, there could be more, but this is what we're privy to. Police essentially received new information in the recent years that describe a man that was talking to Lisa on the night she went missing. So the witnesses actually described the man as around 18 to 20 years of age at the time, tall, with curly hair, and he was seen near the basketball courts leaning against a yellow panel van. Now, this panel van was also seen by Susan, the 10-year-old, and she did say that she saw Lisa enter this yellow panel van. Now, investigators want to identify this man, obviously. The yellow panel van, which has been reported as a Holden panel van, has been an obvious focal point because come 2024, 2025-ish, I'm not 100% sure when this man called up, but basically WA Poll are saying that they had, some new information that came to light about the yellow panel van, which was the only eyewitness was Susan, this 10-year-old girl. And they had published an article in the paper that kind of said, well, we have other information to lead us to look in other places. So this, sparked a thought in a gentleman's mind. So he decided to call up and say, hey, no, I saw this too. I saw her enter a yellow panel van. Please don't look elsewhere, that you need to stay on this. So he felt that because there was already somebody mentioning exactly what he'd also seen in the previous years and so long ago when this initially happened, that he didn't really need to say anything. However, when he felt the police were kind of diverging away from following this lead, he felt he had to say something. He did also mention that he was actually on his way to the TAB, I believe, that night as Lisa was walking towards where the panel van ultimately ended up picking her up. And he thought it was a bit suspicious. So he did actually write the rego down of this yellow panel van. I think he said on a receipt or one of his tab tickets or something like that, but misplaced it. So essentially, if he did come forward when this all happened initially and gave that registration, then this might not be a cold case, but it's not obviously all in his hands. This is just information that he's sharing. So I'm glad he did see this in the paper and come forward. So just to note from the WA Police's cold case episode on Lisa Mott, there's 2 episodes. You can go and listen to them. They do have a chat with a couple of family members. But to take away from that, Lisa was the middle child of 5 children. So her mum's name was Marion. And Marion had said to Lisa that she could go to the basketball court with her friend, as it was understood that the friend's mother was going to drop Lisa back home. So it was a bit of a mix-up there. There was no ill intentions, but the mother actually couldn't drop her home because she had to go back to her place of work. Lisa was under the impression that she could get a lift, and she obviously did not have permission to walk home on her own by Marion that night. So the mother that was meant to drive her didn't actually agree to that, and she had to head back to her shop, so she couldn't drop Lisa home. So what happened was Lisa actually hung back with a girl called Susan, who was 10 at the time, and they played basketball together. Now, Susan's auntie was playing basketball at the time, and she had gone there with her. She waited for her auntie to come off the court to ask her if she could walk partway home with Lisa, because they got along really well and were having a good time. There was nothing sort of, oh, I don't want her to walk by herself. Like, this girl was just 10 years old and she just wanted to walk with her. So essentially the auntie told her that she could, but she only wanted her to walk to the end of the main strip or wherever they were, to the service station on the corner, and then to come straight back. And she didn't want her to go any further than that, so that's what she did. And Susan had told Lisa at the corner that she would watch her as she walked away. And when she did, she saw this yellow panel van near Lisa and watched as Lisa entered the car. So she then went back to the basketball court to her auntie. She obviously didn't mention this to her auntie because, again, she's 10 years old. She's not, looking out for crime or anything like that. But when they found out that Lisa was reported missing, her mother, I believe, took Susan down to the police station to report what she had seen. And she was actually the last person to see Lisa alive. So, while WA Police's official series gives a factual timeline of Lisa's disappearance, I want to actually look at this case through a forensic and criminological lens and unpack sort of what the timeline tells us about opportunity and environment and things like that, even systemic blind spots. I'm going to guide you through the criminological framework, so why crime occurred in that setting, the forensic gaps and advances and how evidence can be reanalyzed today, and of course the human implications, so what society can learn from the missed opportunities, I guess. So when we talk about the disappearance of Lisa Mott, most people start with the timeline, obviously, to familiarise yourself. And that's going to include what she was wearing, where she was last seen, who was questioned, and things like that. But timelines alone can't explain why cases like Lisa's happen or explain why they still remain unsolved. But when we're looking at from a criminological lens, Lisa's case fits what's known as the routine activity theory. So if you're not new here, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you are new here, I'll give you a bit of background info. Now, it sounds clinical, yes, but it's really quite simple. So for a crime to occur, three things must line up: a motivated offender, a suitable target, and the absence of a capable guardianship. So Lisa was just 12. She was walking home from this local sporting event in a small town where everyone, until this day, felt safe. Now, that sense of safety and that trust is exactly what makes opportunity-based crimes possible. From a forensic perspective, cases like Lisa's show how quickly a situation can shift beyond the reach of early investigation. Now, this was in the 1980s, and forensic tools like DNA profiling and trace fibre analysis and behavioural mapping even were in their infancy. So they were around, but they weren't refined. And if the same disappearance happened today, I think we'd be looking at touch DNA and geospatial mapping of likely travel routes of this vehicle, even drone-assisted search models, because they can analyse the terrain like we've spoken about in other episodes. Analysing terrain, vegetation for disturbances and things like that are actually invisible to the human eye. But it's not just about the science, it's about the systems. The 1980s in rural WA weren't exactly a time when violence against women and girls was treated as a public safety crisis like it is now. There's a bit of a gendered layer here, what criminologists call the patriarchal crime theory. And this basically reminds us that for too long, missing girls were treated as runaways before they were treated as victims. And that delay can honestly be fatal and has been fatal in the past. When we're looking at environmental criminology, this adds another layer, and it tells us that most offenders operate within a familiar zone. I like to call it a comfort radius. Now, Collie wasn't a random place, and whoever took Lisa likely knew the roads, the people, and how long they had before anyone noticed before she was gone. These aren't just coincidences, though, and they're spatial behaviours. So they're what modern forensics and modern forensic mapping, rather, can help us understand. But then there's the human side, obviously, in criminology and forensics, the victimology, which we talk about a lot, and that asks us not just who was she last seen with, but who Lisa was. What were her routines, her habits, the trust that she placed in adults around her? These are clues in themselves. In the WA Police podcast, the sister, I can't remember which sister, but it was one of the two sisters, had stated that it would be very unlikely that Lisa would accept a ride from somebody that she does not know. And that's a huge clue in itself, because To understand a crime fully, you have to understand the person who was harmed, not just as, the evidence comes in, but the human being who occupied a space, a pattern, and a community. And that is Lisa. Even though she is 12, she had her routine. And when you put all of these things together, it's a lot of layers, but the criminological theory and the forensic science and the cultural context even, Lisa's case becomes more than an unsolved mystery. It becomes a bit of a mirror and a reflection of what happens when science lags behind justice and when justice lags behind empathy. So it's a very bitter trail. WA police have told this story before, and it's been dissected and summarised and documented even, but what I want to do today is talk about Lisa's case through a different lens and not just a timeline of events, but as a forensic and criminological story that can reveal how environment and opportunity and systemic blind spots collide to leave lasting voids. I do encourage you to listen to both parts of Lisa Mott's story on the WA Police's podcast. I believe it's called Cold Cases. I don't know. If you just type in her name, it should come up and you'll be able to listen to her mother and her sisters speak. It's really heartbreaking, actually, to listen to her mother, Marion, speak because she really suffered quite badly. She was actually hospitalised in the beginning when she when she kind of realised that Lisa was missing. She did not take it well at all. And she was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's taken her quite some time to get to a place where she's able to function. She has had a lot of treatment, and she does kind of avoid talking about it because it brings her so much pain, and it's incredibly sad. But Lisa Mott's name still echoes through Collie, even through WA. Forensics has obviously changed, criminology has changed, policing has even changed, but what hasn't changed is the need to ask hard questions, and not just about who took her, but about what systems allowed her to vanish without answers for this long. And it's also obviously super important to keep the conversations going and to share them and to remind people of names like Lisa Mott so that there is more exposure, because there is no way, like one of the sisters said, I believe it was Bernadette, that, there's no way that the person who drove that yellow panel van is the only one who knows what happened. There is someone somewhere out there that can help this family. Unfortunately, Lisa's father has since passed away. But Marion is, I believe, in her 80s, I think they said, and it would mean the world to her to have some closure and to be able to lay her daughter to rest. And same for the sisters. What they went through is very traumatic. And this case is very, very sad. So thank you for listening and thank you for joining us today. I hope you have enjoyed it here. You can subscribe to stay up to date with new episodes, and you can also find us across all social media platforms. Every unsolved case, like Lisa Mott's, is a mosaic of lost fragments, and oftentimes it only takes one missing piece from the public to complete this picture. You can help these cases along by sharing our episodes and by jumping onto our social media accounts to join in on the case discussions. My name's Asha. I'm a forensic scientist and criminologist who is deeply, deeply invested in Lisa Mott's case, and you are listening to Exhuming the Truth. Stay safe.